This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Okay, I did a video a little while ago entitled The Guitars That Shaped Me, and it was basically a rundown of 5 of the guitars that I've owned over the years, which kind of set me on the path to where I am now. And I got a message from someone who'd seen that video and said, yes, but what about the guitars that you wanted to own but never did? Surely they kind of shape your tastes as much as anything else, because it's what you aspire to own that kind of sets you on the path looking for this guitar or that guitar or whatever. So I thought, you know what, yeah, there's a bit of truth in that, so I'll do a video on that. So these are essentially 5 of the guitars that I've lusted after over the years, starting with
a red Fender Stratocaster.
Indeed, and not just any red Fender Stratocaster, it has to be this one here. As you can see, it's the one that Hank B. Marvin of the Shadows is famously associated with. This was, in case you don't know, the very first ever Fender Stratocaster in the UK. His lead singer at the time, the Shadows, started off as a backing band for kind of the British Elvis kind of clone, a guy called Cliff Richard, back in the 50s, and Cliff bought and imported the Stratocaster especially for Hank to play, and Hank then went on to play it on all of the Shadows' early hits like Apache and FBI and Man of Mystery and what's the other one, Dance On and all of that sort of stuff. Not Dance On, what was it called? It escapes me at the moment. But anyway, all of the early Shadows hits. And, yeah, I remember being really, really young, like a toddler, and hearing the Shadows for the first time. And up to that point in my life, you know, music had amounted to nothing more than the wheels on the bus go round and round, or 10 green bottles hanging on the wall, that sort of thing. And then suddenly I heard this deliciously luscious, echoey electric guitar sound on the radio, and that was it. That was just, I don't think I knew, but that was just a big special moment for me, and even though I was really young, I remember it pretty clearly to this day. So yes, a red Fender Stratocaster, specifically that one. Next,
a black Fender Stratocaster.
And another Stratocaster, this time a black one, specifically this one, Eric Clapton's famous mongrel Strat Blackie. The big irony of this is I think that Eric Clapton has never had a better sound than he ever got out of this guitar. But he was playing this guitar for a period of his career which even he admits himself was quite fallow in patches. You know, there wasn't a lot of great kind of memorable Clapton albums being made, but when he did kind of just come out with something the top tier that he's capable of, it was utterly memorable. I mean, 2 examples that spring to my mind are the wonderful album Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, which is a Roger Waters album, but Eric played guitar all the way through it, and the guitar work on that album is just incredible. It's Clapton firing on all cylinders at his best. And the other example is that live gig that I keep mentioning in these videos, the Carl Perkins Rockabilly Special, where Eric comes out and does a bit of a turn. And on both of those occasions, he's playing Blackie, his famous mongrel Strat, cobbled together, I believe, in the early 70s from bits and pieces of different Strats he'd picked up in junk shops and pawn shops while on tour in the States. And that was his main instrument for many, many years. And I don't think, as I've said, that he's ever had a better sound since. And that was the guitar that partially, at least, set me on the path to being a Strat guy for many years, when I kind of got into, I think when I first heard Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking or something like that in the early 80s. So there you go, a black Fender Stratocaster. Next,
a Sunburst Schecter Strat copy.
And another Strat style guitar. This time it's not a Fender. This is a Schecter Sunburst Strat copy. And as you can see, there's a few differences there. For instance, only 2 controls. I think it's probably a master volume and a master tone. You've got individual switches for the pickups, and the output jack is on the side of the guitar rather than being on the scratch plate. I love that brass scratch plate though. What's so special about this guitar? Well, it's the guitar that Mark Knopfler played the majority of the Alchemy live album with. When you watch that video, and I've still got a VHS of it kicking around somewhere, and I've got it on DVD, I've got various different copies of it. He's swapping between various different guitars, but this one seems to make up the majority of the set that he plays. And you know, again, like I said with Eric Clapton and Blackie, I don't think Mark has ever had a better tone than he got out of, on that Alchemy album. It's a lot dirtier than you think when you listen to it. It's not a pure kind of crystalline, clean Strat sound. It's just got that little bit of fizz around the edges, and it really kind of rocks his tone on that album, I think. And it's largely because, probably, I suspect, this guitar and a fair amount of talent involved as well, it has to be said. And I just watched that VHS when I first got it and listened to the double vinyl album so many times that is just impregnated on me. The solo on the outro of Tunnel of Love, for example, I mean, it's just masterful, and I wanted a guitar like that. So yes, a Sunburst Schecter Strat copy. Next,
An Ibanez Roadster 2 RS 530.
Right, as you can probably see here, this is an Ibanez Roadster guitar, an early Super Strat that I remember from the video, as you can see here, of the Gary Moore Phil Lynott single Out in the Fields. He also plays, I think, this guitar or a similar one in the video to the original version of Empty Rooms, the one that appears on the Victims of the Future album. I didn't know at the time, but he actually played that solo on his famous Peter Green Les Paul, but he used an Ibanez in the video. And well, it's quite simple. If Gary had one, I wanted one. Back in, that was the way I thought back in the mid 1980s. I was a massive Gary Moore nut. I still am, to be honest with you. But this was when I was really starting to get into his music, and I wanted this guitar. It's 24 fret twin humbucker guitar. That's not a Floyd Rose trem on there. It's Ibanez's own proprietary locking trem, which kind of dates it, because this was before the time when, essentially Floyd Rose and I suppose Carla locking trems were the were the two main images, the two main locking trem systems. But this was kind of predating that, when, I think Fender had their own locking trem at one point, and so did Ibanez. Now, I've long since got over my desire to own a guitar with a locking trem, but this guitar is still a bit of a bucket list one for me. I'd love to kind of play one and just, relive those. It just ticks something off the list, and it's something that I wish that I had when I was a young lad back in the mid 1980s. So, an Ibanez Roadster. Next,
A Gretsch 6120 Chet Atkins model.
Okay, this one's a bit out of left field. I'm not, as you can probably gather, I'm not like a huge Chet Atkins fan. I mean, I won't have a word said against him in terms of technique and talent and everything like that. And he really did define the Nashville sound, both as a guitarist and as a producer. But I don't own a single Chet Atkins album. No, the reason I wanted this Chet Atkins Gretsch was because Brian Setzer played one on the first Stray Cats album. I grew up steeped in like 50s rock and roll nostalgia. It was big business in the 70s when I was a kid. Grease was on in the cinemas, and Happy Days was on TV, and bands like The Darts and Shiwaddy Waddy were all over the hit parade, as we used to call it then. And then along in the early 80s came this more raucous, raw-sounding take on rockabilly. It was like a little bit more kind of dangerous sounding. And Stray Cats were at the forefront of that movement. And Brian Setzer played the Gretsch 6120 Chet Atkins model, and dearie me, what a sound he got out of it. Probably my first inklings that I was going to end up being a jazz fan came from the Stray Cat Strut, you know, just those exotic chords and licks that he was playing on there. And just, you know, is it possible to listen to Rock This Town and not tap your feet along to it? I don't think so. Yeah, absolutely fantastic tone that Brian gets out of this guitar on this album. And again, I mean, I think he's got his own signature Gretsch now, but for me, this is still the defining Brian Setzer sound, this first Stray Cats album. Absolutely brilliant. And I just wanted to sound like that. So I wanted this guitar. So there you go. There are 5 guitars that at one point or another in my life I have lusted over. And what have I ended up with? A twin humbucker Telecaster style guitar. So there's a moral in there. So this is my Scott Guitars John Robson signature model, by the way, and a few people have said they want to see the headstock. There it is. The reason I haven't put any shots of this headstock in the main video I did about the guitar was because it's not quite finished yet. It is, it just doesn't have the decals on it. Basically, Dan, the guy who's making these guitars, has been let down by his decal supplier, so there aren't any decals on it yet. When they get when they arrive, I'm going to put them on, and then it will be finished. But yes, the moral of the story seems to be, you know, I lusted after a red Stratocaster, a black Stratocaster, a Sunburst Strat copy, an early Super Strat, and a 50s, hollow body semi-acoustic, and I ended up with my ideal guitar being a twin humbucker Telecaster. So I would say, the moral of the story is, you know, get your ideal guitar. Figure out what that is. It might take you a little bit of time, but, your ideal guitar might not be the ideal guitar of even your biggest guitar hero. So there you go, folks. That's all I've got for you today. Hope you've enjoyed the video, found it reasonably entertaining, and a little bit of nostalgia in there. And if you've enjoyed it, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not give me a like while you're at it? And let's not forget the live stream tomorrow, 5 p.m. GMT. I'm sure you know all about it now, but if you're new to the channel, basically we sit and have a beer and talk about music and guitars for an hour. What's not to like about that? Fantastic way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see many of you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. If you're interested in supporting the channel, all the links are downstairs in the description. Check them out if you will. Thank you if you're doing any of that sort of stuff to help me keep the lights on around here, and thank you in advance if you're thinking about doing it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. See you next time, folks. Bye for now.